Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV, where for I think only the second time this year we've actually got some bright sunny weather, but I don't hold out much hope of that lasting very long. Now, we have on occasions been criticised for only reviewing bigger and more expensive bikes, but what if I told you this month our bike review was going to be looking at a bike, an all-round bike that costs less than £4 brand new. Now, many moons ago, before the words adventure biking had even entered my vocabulary, I went on a mini adventure around Wales with my buddy on the back of my bike and all our camping equipment. And we were riding a Honda XBR 500, and this month's review is of the Mash Dirtstar Scrambler. Now, the Scrambler uses an engine derived from that Honda XBR engine, albeit it's now 400cc and it's only got 29 horsepower and it's slightly detuned. And here it is.
The Mash Dirtstar Scrambler is based around a 400cc 4-valve air-cooled single made by China in China. So this is a Chinese bike, but it's styled and overseen by the French brand Mash. They launched the basic Roadstar 400 last year, and the Dirtstar Scrambler is the latest variation on the theme. When you read the spec for the bike on the Mash website, you get 20 bullet points in the description. Only 2 of those actually talk about anything really technical. That's the Siemens EFI and the 41mm front forks. That's your lot. No electronics, minimal adjustment, no toys and nothing digital. The rest is all about the styling. 2-into-1 exhaust, rear circular red light, black wheel rims and rounded side panels. And that really tells you what you need to know about this bike. It is about inexpensive, basic, no-nonsense value for money. Anyone old enough to remember street scramblers of the 60s and 70s, they weren't true scramblers in the way that we think of them now. They weren't really much more than street bikes with knobbly tyres and wide handlebars. And the Dirtstar does not break that mould. With the competition style front license plate and headlight protector, you get a look, but not much more. Would you really want to use it as a scrambler in its standard format? There's no adjustment on the front forks and just preload on the rear. You'd have to be pretty sure of avoiding big rocks because this bike has no bash plate and does not have a high level exhaust like the modern Ducati and Triumph scramblers. But despite that, with the parts it does have, the mix of dark metal grey finishes and the retro scrambler styled seat, it really does look the part.
So we've been out riding the bike for a couple of hours now, and I've had a chance to form a few first impressions. But I think the starting point is you've got to remember this bike is £3,999, including VAT, brand new. And you might think that makes it some horrible Chinese knockoff. Well, it is made in China, but it's certainly not a horrible knockoff. There's nothing really about it that's cheap and nasty. I would say simple and utilitarian. But not the finish. The finish is absolutely fantastic. The tank, the grey and the orange and the black looks lovely, and all the matte black. it looks the part. And I really gave it quite a good thorough workout over the hills and the valleys over the last couple of hours. 29 horsepower is never going to set the world alight, but it gets you where you want to go to at a reasonable pace. And I did wonder about the brakes. It's got a single disc on the front and only a drum on the rear. But I gave them a good workout too, and you know what? I was pretty impressed by the stopping power. So overall, I've rather been enjoying myself.
It's quite a low bike, with a seat around 780mm and the handling and performance is exactly what you'd expect from a basic air-cooled 29 horsepower engine which has its roots back in the 1980s. I was just happy cruising along, enjoying the beautiful Welsh coastline. I could hustle it along where I needed to for overtaking, but nothing more. The Mash Dirtstar Scrambler does what it does, and it does it perfectly adequately, with no apologies. But you know what really excites me the most about this bike? It's what comes next. In France, Mash is selling the 400 Adventure for under €5,000. For that, you do get adjustable 43mm front forks, multifunction digital dash, and 80 litres of aluminium panniers. That's quite a bargain. You can't get them here? Well, not yet anyway.
So, scramblers. It doesn't matter whether it's a Triumph or a Ducati or indeed a Mash. They're not necessarily globe-trotting adventure bikes, but they are scramblers, so they can go off-road. It can take you on an adventure on tarmac and off the tarmac. I guess the question you've got to ask yourself is, do you want to pay 8 or 9 grand for a Ducati or a Triumph, or do you want to pay under 4 grand for your brand new Mash? There's only a couple of places where the bikes felt just the tiniest bit cheap for me. The indicator warning light on the clocks is very dim, and loads of times I ended up leaving the indicators on today. And the cut-off switch on the side stand, well, that does feel cheap and it just feels bolted on. But despite the differences with the difference in the electronics, the lower power, it's definitely not half the bike. And I've really, really enjoyed riding it today. And I guess the question, of course, is, would I have one of these in my garage? And well, the answer is, if I wanted a scrambler for under 4 grand, yeah, of course I would. Now, we do get occasional feedback on Adventure Bike TV about the fact that we float around all day filming and ride adventure bikes all around the countryside. And you know what? On a day like today, I can absolutely live with that. There you go. Well, anyway, whilst I'm floating around on a motorbike, you guys can watch Top Tech.
Hi, I'm Ed, and welcome to this month's Top Tech. So on this month's Top Tech, we'll be looking at the Petzl E-Light. This is an emergency head torch, perfect for those backup situations. You can keep it at the bottom of your tank bag or your pannier. So let's open it up and have a look. One of the first things you might notice about this head torch is its size, and that's partly to do with not having a big elastic strap. It has this simple zip lock that pulls out and adjusts to whatever size you need. Nice and simple. Another reason why this head torch is so small is because of the batteries it uses. Rather than the standard AA or AAA, it uses a watch style battery. This style of battery has a 10-year shelf life, meaning that you can put it in your tank bag, in your panniers, forget about it, and when you need it, it'll be there ready to use. Another great benefit about the E-Light is its zip cord, meaning that not only can it be put around your head, but it can also be put around anything you have to hand. So for example, you can put it around a rock, leave it there, and then pivot the light out to the direction you need it. So you don't even have to hold the light when using it. The E-Light uses 5 lighting modes with both white and red light. The first mode is economy mode, and then we have a maximum beam and then a white strobe light. The next mode is a red strobe followed by a continuous red beam. So the benefits of the E-Light using a red light is that it can be seen from up to 300 metres away and burn for 30 hours. Plus, it won't ruin your night vision. So overall, the Petzl E-Light is a great piece of emergency kit to keep on your bike at all times. So for your chance to get your hands on this bit of top tech, all you need to do is answer this simple question. How many modes does the Petzl E-Light use? Is it A, 1, B, 3, C, 4, or D, 5? All you need to do is go to www.adventurebiketv.com and hit on the competition link to enter. I'll see you next time for another piece of top tech.
Do not forget that, as always, you can win what you've seen on Top Tech by going to adventurebiketv.com and entering the competition. Now, how would you feel about attaching a sled to the back of a sports bike and taking it up to the Arctic Circle, over glaciers and through ice and mud and, just terrible conditions? Well, that's exactly what this guy did.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
My name is Sjaak Lucasson and I'm from the Netherlands. It all started when motorcycle vacations were not long enough. I think most of the people have a feeling like that. They never want to go home. I had the same, and I thought, well, why going home? And I always wanted to visit Australia, so that's what I did. When I got the Fireblade in '92, I took the crate as well at the shop, and in '92 I sent it to Australia, rode around for 38,000 kilometers, shipped it back, went back as a backpacker to Indonesia. Indonesia I loved it, but I missed my wheels. And at that time I got a feeling that I can do longer trips. So in '95 I started off with the same Fireblade for a trip to the other end of the world and back. It took about 160,000 kilometers, so 100,000 miles. And it lasted till '98. And that are the major trips, the main trips before the R1 World Travel, which you referred to before. The question everybody asks me, why an R1? I hear that all the time, and for me it's very simple. It's a bike of my heart, and I find that for me more important than the right bike for the terrain. Somebody else doesn't matter what bike he wants to take, or she. Take an all-road bike because it's better for the terrain, but if you want a specific bike, take it. Take the bike of your heart, because if your heart is in it, you achieve virtually anything. When I started to travel in the early 90s, I did some research. There wasn't internet at that stage, and I heard from people that all the time the gear rack was breaking. So I thought, why building a gear rack? Why not mounting boxes directly on the subframe? So that's why I designed this system, and it seems to work. And the weight is really towards the front and narrow to the bike. So the weight distribution of the Fireblade and the R1 is actually very good. Even if the box is filled, I can still put my knee down. That's actually another reason that I ride R1s and Fireblade. So although my bikes look heavily modified, except the boxes, they are not. They still have the I don't know the word from a crotch rocker. They still you can do everything with it what other people can do with it. So of course you're limited in a little way, but you can still have fun, believe me. And I do have fun every now and then on them. Before I started my R1 trip, I already had in mind to go to the North Pole. And I thought by myself, I must do one other big trip before I go to the North Pole, and then I start writing. I want to share my stories with the people, and then sponsors will be available to finance the trip to the North Pole. So actually I had the North Pole already in mind before I went with the R1 around the world. Now, it's incredibly important to have a lot of knowledge about the terrain. So that's why I started to do winter rides. I went to the North Cape during winter. I went to the most northern point from Alaska that you can reach on public road. That is Dead Horse in 2009. And in 2013, I went on the polar ice on a trip from Point Barrow down to Key West. But for me, the most important part of it was the ride on the polar ice. For that, I took another R1. I call it the Polar Ice Ride R1. Why again an R1? The answer is actually very, very simple. Not for cornering, because there's no cornering on the ice, but I know this bike inside out. I trust it. It has an incredible reliability. And if something breaks down and you have to repair it, you want a bike that you know inside out. So that's why I took an R1. And it doesn't matter what bike you take, because even if you take a Beamer or whatever bike, you have to heavily modify it to be able to ride on the polar ice. So I put massive wheels on this bike, but they're not wide enough. But like we said, it is a test, and I found that I had hoped that with little modifications I could prepare the same bike to go to the North Pole. It turned out to be different. I made it over the polar ice, so I succeeded in that, but I wasn't able to pull the sledge, at least not the whole way. So it turned out that I cannot take my own fuel with me, but I also cannot do the filming, and if I can't do filming and photography, it's not good. So on my next trip, I'm gonna build another bike. I'm gonna use a donor R1 as a base, and it's gonna have massive tires. It's gonna have tires about 60 centimeters wide on the back, 40 centimeters on the front. So it's gonna be beautiful looking, I tell you. I'm still gonna pull a sledge, but there will only be my normal things on it which I need for daily use. They are not allowed, because there is a backup vehicle or a backup dog sled or whatever to do the filming and to carry the fuel, but I will do all the work myself. So I will ride all the way myself to the North Pole. I don't know if I'm the first to ride to the North Pole. I heard from a Japanese guy. I haven't seen real pictures. It might be true, it might not be. But that's not my goal to be first. It's just my goal is to go to the North Pole. And I don't care if I'm first, second or third, as long as I get there. The plan is only to go towards the North Pole. I know that the Russians have from the end of spring and during summer, they have a base there. So they should be able to fly everything out, which is expensive, but the whole trip will be enormously expensive anyway. But the plan is not to ride back. No, our plan is to fly out. I only want to go towards the North Pole. During the trips that I did before, I found out many things about the bike, and I thought about how to deal with it. And then you look how people deal with it in Alaska, how people deal with it in Norway, how they deal with it with cars, and do the same thing on a bike. What the battery goes on, at minus 40, a battery doesn't do anything. At minus 25, a battery actually is already dead. So I used a Hawker battery, an Odyssey battery, which has a minus 40. It has still 50% of its starting capacity, which is more than an original standard R1 battery. So that's how I dealt with that problem. The other problem is the starting. I preheated the carburetors. I have a generator with me with 220 volt. I have a wire around the carburetors, which becomes warm when I put it in the 220. That's winded around the carburetors. Around that is aluminium tape, so all the heat is forced into the carburetors, and that's brilliant. That works really good. So that's how I preheat the carburetors. The engine I preheat the same like they do in Norway. I have a little heater in the cooling system. I connect it to the 220 again, and warm cooling liquid starts to rise, and that's how the cooling circuit starts to circulate, and that's how I preheat my engine till about 0 degrees, and then I start it. And then I have special oil in there from Pyrenees, and the oil is specially designed for me. It can go to, the pour point of that oil is minus 51 Celsius. So normal oil, again, like minus 25, it starts to get solid, but this oil stays liquid till minus 51 degrees. So it's a very nice question what you asked me. A lot of people ask me that questions, and the answer is I never had that point. I never questioned myself, what am I doing here? I never did, because I know what I'm doing there. I know I like adventure. When I was in the Congo, it was civil war area, and I wrote an article about that in my book, and the article is called Paradise in Hell, because it was a hell to go through there. I was the first person who crossed the Congo in 4 years at that time. Before me it were 4 Iveco trucks who crossed it, so it wasn't even a bike. And I called it Paradise in Hell because it was a hell, but for me it was paradise, because that's what I like, adventure. People can see about my trip from the past and from the future, my future North Pole trip on my website. And I have already explained on my website how I'm gonna build the bike, how I'm gonna do it, what the modifications are of the bike. All that is already on my website. And there's also a support page. I did the similar thing on 2013 during the Polar Ice Ride. At that stage it was a sticker on my sleds, but now I'm gonna take a flag with me. And people can have their name, their logo on the flag. Already from 10 euros on, they can be on the flag and ride symbolically with me. And they get a picture of the flag every time that something special occurs. When I get the bike, or even here at the UK Horizon Unlimited meeting, take a picture, and people are symbolically with me then, by having the name on the flag.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
So, if ever there was an example that you can make any bike go absolutely anywhere in the world, that bike was it. And there's a lot more to come from this guy that we know he's going to be doing in the near future. Now it's time for a break. I'm going to go off and sort out my suntan. Welcome back from the break. Now it's time to go over the pond to meet Ian Harper in Round the Bend in the USA.
My name's Ian Harper from Overland Junction. Come with me as I go round the bend in the USA. Welcome back to Arizona. This month's ride begins at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. Among its many other claims to fame, Flagstaff is the world's first dark sky city, and it was here in 1930 that astronomers first discovered Pluto. Looking east over the city, there's the old Route 66 heading towards Winona, and to the north, Humphreys Peak, the highest point in Arizona, topping out at 12,637 feet. Leaving Flagstaff, we'll be following US Route 180 towards our destination, and we'll be tracking the route with the Real Rider app. There are countless off-road alternatives, but the 180 is the most direct way to go. It's about 80 miles of easygoing, picturesque riding through the ponderosa pines of the Coconino National Forest, past Humphreys Peak, and then heads north at Valley. And what is there to look forward to at the end of the road? Not much. Not much, apart from this. 277 miles long, up to 18 miles wide, and believe me, the camera really can't do justice to the immense scale and majesty of the Grand Canyon. A mile below the vantage point of the South Rim, the mighty Colorado River snakes through the gorge on its way to Lake Mead in Mexico. Some people come here and grumble that one of the 7 natural wonders of the world is just a big hole in the ground. Most are simply lost for words. When you come to the USA and ride through Arizona, be sure to visit here and see it for yourself. And if you have time, take the longer, more remote route to the North Rim. About 5 miles before you get to the Grand Canyon itself, you'll come into the Grand Canyon National Park, where there's a fee per vehicle. For motorcycles, that's $25. Next month, I'll be heading to California and the Horizons Unlimited event near Yosemite.
Right, well, there'll be more from Ian next month, and now it's time for Slimbo's superlative suggestions. And just a quick message to Slimbo: stop putting yourself down, mate. They're not superfluous, we know they are superlative.
Hello chums, and welcome to another episode of Slimbo Superfluous Suggestions. This month, tools. No, that's not an insult. We're going to show you some little ideas that you can do and why sometimes tools can do a little more than you think. Now then, here we've got a couple of spanners. Now the spanner on its own is great, and these are a nice size, but if you've got to put a bit of grunt onto that spanner, what you're going to find is if that nut or that bolt is really tight, it's not always physically right for you, is it? So here's a little trick. Simply get the other ring end of the other spanner, hook it over there. Now, just for argument's sake, and all of a sudden you've doubled the length and increased the torque on that spanner without even thinking. Now, being a mechanical person myself, I would suggest you do this not on a regular basis, because You're putting a lot of strength and a lot of torsion on here, but it'll get you out the stuck. It'll break that nut for you rather than you not being able to undo it. So that's a nice simple one for you there. Spanners are great for that. And don't forget, you're always going to carry them, aren't you? Right, next little bit we're going to move on to is screwdrivers. Now, why do you think this screwdriver is this shape? Ergonomic to fit in your hand? Well, funnily enough, if you've got some screwdrivers this shape, if you look on the end there, it's funny how it doesn't fit on that one. It fits inside that spanner. Now, if you've got a tight screw, you can use your spanner to rotate it. Another little hack for you, nice and simple. Little tip, as I say, most screws, if they're that tight, you just got to be careful, because what will happen is if you put too much torque on them, they'll snap, or the actual head of the screw will chew up. But just be careful. But if you've got a really tight one, that's a cracking idea. Right, as we're talking about screwdrivers, have you ever wondered what happens if you're out somewhere and you need to top up your oil and you haven't got a funnel, but you've got a bottle of oil in your bag? Well, funnily enough, this is your perfect funnel. All you've got to do is find the aperture where you're going to pour the oil. You put the end of the screwdriver in it, and then you'll trickle the oil onto here. It will then naturally run down the shank and into the hole, rather than you try and pour straight from the can into the hole and get it all over the place. No mess, no fuss, and all you got to do is a little wet wipe to wipe your screwdriver clean. There you go, that's another one. But in this particular case, this screwdriver, look, it's got a hole in the end. Can you see that? Now, what's that for? Put a bit of string around it on a lanyard? Possibly. Well, why not? If you've got a tight screw, put that through it. You've instantly got a screwdriver T-bar. There you go. Another one. Bit more torque, undo them tight screws. Fantastic, great. Now then, vice grips, or whatever grips you've got, whether they be vice grips or whatever name. Doesn't matter if they're cheap Chinese or very, very expensive ones. The fact is, you should always have a pair of these in your toolkit. These are worth their weight in gold or platinum, or a mixture of metals actually. Quite simply, with a screwdriver, notice how this one is hexagonal. If you need extra torque, you can clamp on there, and that will give you extra turning power. Another little trick. Simple. Surprising how many little tricks you can do with just a simple toolkit. Now then, these little babies here are great, aren't they? These get us outstung. I don't know why I've been given all flat-bladed implements here, because I don't know any motorcycle that actually has flat-bladed screws on them. But hey, for demonstration purposes, this will do. These little puppies normally go into a receiver, which is magnetic. But if you haven't got one, or you haven't got one in your toolkit, you can't find it, it's been lost, or somebody borrowed it, never brought it back, why not put your vice grips on it? Or better still, like that. You've now got some vice grip screwdrivers. Yay! Well, there you go, folks. How about that? Didn't know you could do that with some of the tools, did you? Well, maybe some of you did, some of you didn't, but the idea of these suggestions is to bring it to all of you, and it just makes the stuff a lot more usable. Anyway, we'll see you next month, and if you've got any suggestions for us, don't forget to use the website and send us an email. Yes, it's that time again. It's harmonica time. I'll see you again next month on Adventure Bag TV. I can't rhyme for toffee. Have fun
Now, this month we don't have a formal Austin Rover as such. However, we did catch up with Austin Vince at the Adventure Travel Film Festival.
Hello there, my name's Austin Vince. I'd like to welcome you to the Adventure Travel Film Festival, admittedly as seen through the hungry lens of Adventure Bike TV. Two-day camping festival, like a rock festival, but instead of it being bands, you go and see adventure travel films. Obviously we love motorcycling and adventure motorcycling, but we also have a lot of other amazing stuff. I believe that man doth not live by bread alone, and that if you like the idea of somebody riding a couple of Ducatis around the world in 1955, you might also like the idea of somebody riding horses from Mexico to Canada. Or you might also like the idea of somebody canoeing the length of the Congo. Or you might like the idea of somebody driving an ordinary car from Geneva to Delhi in 1939 and filming it all in 16mm glorious colour. Maybe, of course, the ultimate treat, you and a load of mates get a double-decker bus in 1969 and you drive it to Australia and have quite a few adventures in the timeless British fashion of the inappropriate vehicle. So we've got loads of stuff happening here, and it's great fun, and it's a real pleasure, above all else, to be able to have a heavy and unashamedly heavy-duty motorcycle-friendly, adventure motorcycle-friendly agenda, but 90% of the people at this event are not motorcyclists, and actually would go so far as to say they're at least be interested in it. And so part of my job is to get those people who are not enlightened and unjazzed, show them motorcycling in a positive way. Motorcycles not cool because they're shiny or fast or expensive or stylish, but a motorcycle being something that you do something with. A motorcycle that takes you somewhere, maybe to fulfill a dream, maybe to escape, maybe just to meet other people who are different, to take you outside your comfort zone. And I think there's almost nothing better than a motorbike for doing that.
If you've not had a chance to go to the Adventure Travel Film Festival before, then we could highly recommend it. Austin and Lois put a huge amount of effort into the show, and it's great to see how it's grown over the years. Now, hopefully you remember that last year for our Christmas special, we tried to cross the Pyrenees from east to west off-road, and we failed miserably. Here's what happened when we tried to do it again. See a final moment before I leave to go on my trip with my buddy, but for the first time, and a bit weirdly, I'm not actually leaving with my buddy because he went last night. So the Channel Tunnel's experiencing delays of about an hour. Lovely advantage of a motorcycle, it just let me through. Fab. There's only one downside with using the auto train of soft luggage. They make you take every single bit of soft luggage off the bike.
Remember that bothy that took us a day and a half to get to last time?
We arrived with hours to spare.
Hours. Like, well, it's 7:30 in the evening.
So we got 2 hours. It gets dark at 9:30. So, but we are properly,
Basically. Properly.
The big bikes actually were better than the small bikes, but that's another story.
I see why you stopped. I didn't see it either.
The ground was too.
Yeah. Oh, I got money underneath it. Hello, old friend. You're back.
So it is the morning of day 3. Yesterday was a good day. We got 210 kilometres done, so that's 410k out of 1300, bang on target. But a hard day. We finished off with 2 hours of really hard bumpy riding, in stark contrast to the first day when the last hour was really easy. And I got to about 5:30 and we were both utterly shattered to the point where I was starting to feel shaky. And I think actually realised we probably needed to be putting more food in than we were eating. We've just about done it with water. I actually can't move at all. You just try lifting the back on the back plate. I can get my foot out and then we do it together. My foot's stuck. No. No. No, I'm nowhere near out. That's it, I'm done. Thanks. As you can see, I think my foot caught and I got dragged a bit. Last rocky section, we had to take the luggage off the bikes and makes you wonder whether we can finish it or not. It really does.
Basically, big rock, hit big rock, hurt foot, broke, brake, pedal, end off, and I've now just Heath Robinson, I can't even say it, done a bit of Heath Robinson on it.
Job well done, mate. Job well done. Job well done. Well, that's the end of the show. Thanks for watching, if you're still with us, and well done for sticking with us for the whole show. We'll see you next month.